Three technicians promised to fix what they had zero access to. When the truth finally came out, guess who looked like the bad guy? Hello and welcome back to Karma Stories. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today's episode is full of chaos, coffee, clueless workers, and even a few heartwarming moments. We have spring cleaning regrets to work from home hardware fails, tech tales that remind us that in support, the absurd is just part of the job. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Kevin Keen 18. The truth hurts, but not as much as the three lies before it. Background: I work in support for a hosting provider in the Netherlands. We sell domains, host websites, manage DNS, and all that jazz. You get the idea. Customer calls in frustrated beyond belief, says he's been on the phone 3 times already and is still having email issues. Cue me walking into the minefield completely unaware. The setup: domain with us, website plus name servers, Wix, email set up with Google Workspace. So in this triangle of hell, we control just the domain. We don't host the website, we don't manage the DNS, and we definitely don't touch his Gmail inbox. Enter the legends: Dumb, Dumber, and Dumbest. I escalate the call to second line after gently explaining that we can't fix it ourselves, but I'll gladly help him find what to fix. Of course, curiosity kills the cat, so I go back and listen to the previous 3 calls. That's when it hits me. What the actual HE double hockey sticks? Yeah, no problem, sir. We'll get that fixed for you. Yes, leave it with us. We'll change the settings. I've escalated it internally. Someone will adjust the DNS shortly. Meanwhile, we don't even control the DNS. We wouldn't even be able to get anywhere near those records, even if we wanted to. The name servers point to Wix. That means any DNS records, including the all-important MX for Google Workspace, needs to be managed on the Wix side. Me on the actual call. Hey, I can't change this for you, but I can walk you through where to look in your Wix account so you can update the Google Workspace records. Customer understandably pissed. What do you mean you can't fix it? The others all said you could. Now, I get it. I do. You've been told by 3 different reps that someone's going to fix it, only to have the 4th guy, me, finally give it to you straight. That's not a good feeling. And honestly, I felt bad for the guy. He wasn't being difficult. He was being lied to, politely, and finally got hit with reality. Post-call, in second line rep notes, customer did not want to accept answer, ended call myself. Which, technically true, but also a bit like rage quitting your own boss fight, am I right? Don't antagonize the customer, which has been antagonized by us. Me, post-escalation, reading the notes and hearing the calls. Dumb, dumber, dumbest. In what world did you think we could fix DNS records we don't even have access to? What did you think we were gonna do? Hack Wix's control panel? Cast DNS change via telepathy? Moral of the story: it's better to tell the truth once, even if it causes friction, than to build a Jenga tower of false promises and leave someone else to take the fall. Because when you finally hit the one rep who's honest, they don't look like the savior, they look like the bad guy, even when they're the only one who actually helped. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Immediate Season 293. It says, I upvoted, but I hate your story because pretty much everyone I work with is your 3Ds. And I can't help myself. I just fix things, clean things up, and I create more work for myself. But darn it, I'm not letting it go out the door that way. Another commenter called Stu Bidasol said, that's a terrible story because it's completely relatable. Hats off to you for doing the job correctly though. Incompetent colleagues has to be one of the worst things when you work in a call center that makes your job needlessly harder. The other thing that can make your job needlessly harder is when the customer lies to you to make their situation sound more dire. Like, I'm gonna troubleshoot with you what you're telling me to do, but if you're lying to me, it's gonna take longer because we're gonna be troubleshooting things that we really don't need to be troubleshooting. After years of holding on to it, he finally gave in and tossed the one thing every tech has. And of course, that's when the universe struck back. This story comes to us from Smashing Baby. I finally threw out that box. It's springtime, and with Passover right around the corner, the missus got into clean mode, which unfortunately also included my home office and the box. You know which one, the one with years of old unused cables, USB 1.0, VGA, PS2, Firewire RJ11 cable, an obsolete zip drive, mystery power adapters, and my personal favorites, some RCA connectors. You name it, I probably had it. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, this whole thing is covered in dust and hasn't been opened in years. So, feeling productive, I tossed the whole thing, to my wife's delight. Fast forward 3 days, Grandma calls me, needing help with her ancient fax machine. She still faxes things to her doctor and gets faxes back. But for some reason, they're not going through. Took me a bit to figure it out, but the RJ11 cable had been folded in on itself for a couple of years too long and had probably frayed, leading to intermittent connectivity. There I am, browsing Amazon to buy the very thing I just tossed not even last week. Lesson learned, obsolete tech will never, ever really die. And the kicker, the replacement RJ11 cost more than I want to admit for something I had sitting in a box, literally for years. Use my story of misfortune to teach your spouses why they must never toss the box. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called NPSage. It says, a lesson every tech learns. It's okay to reduce the old tech clutter, but never to zero. I follow the rule that I always keep 2 of each cable that I've ever had, because that way, if and when you need it, one will be defective, the other will actually work. But it is because I keep 2 that I will never ever need them. It's only as soon as you go to 0, the universe swiftly corrects you. But if you keep 2, the gremlins are held at bay. 'Tis the way. So I have a bit of a different problem with the cable box. I actually have a couple of them because I was a good old nerd back in the day, building my own computers and all kinds of electronics all over the house. So my problem now is that if I need a certain cable, I know I have it, but the chances of me finding it in any good amount of time, they're pretty slim. So I'll order a new one on Amazon. But as soon as I do, that cable will show up right at the top of one of those boxes, right where I just looked. 5 hours, endless troubleshooting, and a customer IT team that forgot one tiny, critical detail. The kind that makes techs want to scream into a pillow. This story comes to us from Lion Seat Cake. 5 hours later, should we try the device everyone is actually using? Spent 5 hours today helping 2 of my techs deal with a communication issue. We have software that we install locally, which accesses a device on their network. All ports are open, firewalls temporarily disabled, can ping in command prompt, cannot connect the application to the device. We are not IT. We are software support talking to the customer's IT, whose favorite phrase is, "What should I do?" 5 hours later, after troubleshooting a device whose IP is showing 10.10.10 when the default gateway on the host computer is 192.168.1, he says, should we try all of this on the time clock all the users are actually using? 5 minutes later, the issue is resolved. Apparently at some point, device A stopped working, they had device B on hand to take its place, and for some reason, left device A accessible. This would have been a 3-minute call if we knew that. We had no way of even knowing to ask that question, but we know now. Always an exciting day in tech support. Jumping down to the comments on this one from a user called Strong IT, it says, a pretty big part of dealing with clients in IT is knowing the right questions to ask, and it's frustrating as hell. I've done tech support in a few different roles in call centers and in stores, and for my family, and, well, for everybody else that I know as well. Sometimes being the nerd isn't the most fun, but anyway, I realized pretty quickly that sometimes the dumb questions are the ones you really need to ask first, because you'd be surprised how many times it's something really simple that they're just not thinking about that caused the problem, and the fix will literally take 2 seconds if you ask the right questions. Some jobs come with zero room for error, like coordinating literal rescue missions. So naturally, that's when someone decides it's the perfect time to unplug the workstation. This story comes to us from HungryCheek3994. You are in the middle of a SAR operation? Don't care. A little bit of context beforehand. For the past 8 years, I've been working as an IT tech in an MRCC, which is a Maritime Rescue Coordination Center. Basically, we coordinate all search and rescue operations, SAR, in our maritime area of responsibility. So we deal with literal human life, and people can die if we screw up badly enough. A few years ago, I had the displeasure of having a young man to train so that IT wouldn't be a one-person job anymore. We'll call him Void, because that's what he had between his 2 ears. Void did not learn anything in the year and a half he graced us with his presence. I could teach him something one day, ask him if he had understood, even make him do some exercises. He would have forgotten the next day, if not sooner. But Void was convinced he was the best thing to happen to tech support since the invention of shortcuts. Anyway, that day Void was tasked to swap out screens in the operational workstations. Now, these workstations are of course manned 24/7 because an emergency can arise at any moment. So we cannot swap screen after everybody has gone home because it doesn't happen. What happens in this case is we either just let the person working at this workstation take a break while we are working on it, put the person on another workstation a few meters away, not very practical in case of an emergency because these are teams of 2 people whose workstations are next to each other so they can communicate verbally easily, but manageable for a few hours if needed. Or put up a workstation from our stock if we need to work on the hardware, like swap out a hard drive and such. What we do not do, however, is touch the workstation or anything attached to it, like for example screens, if a SAR operation is underway, unless explicitly asked. I'm pretty sure at this point you all have understood what happened. An operation was underway, but Void has this God-given task to do: swap out the old screens and replace them with new ones. So he began to unconnect the first screen. Of course, the operator working at the workstation stopped him to ask what in the ever-loving hell he was doing. Well, I'm swapping out the screens. You absolute buffoon. Didn't you see we're in the middle of an operation and we need all of our screens? Of course, this was met with silence and an air of incomprehension from Void. What do you mean the operational workstations are no touchy during an actual operation? He was never asked to do anything related to operational workstations alone, ever again. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called the Fluffiest Redditor. It says, "How did Void not get yeeted for so long? 18 months is a very long time to be a drain on the group." Another user responded to this comment called Moridak550. They said, "We have the same issue right now, and we cannot fire the guy because of employment rules in my country. Until he does something bad, he's safe, because he doesn't learn fast enough, sadly isn't a valid reason to fire." OP responded to this one and said, "That's exactly the case with Void. We cannot get fired unless we screw up royally, like if a death can be linked to his incompetence. But because we were 5 other people on the team, he never actually did something dire. But during those 18 months, 40% of my work was fixing his mistakes. He actually had to change jobs because we forced him to, and he didn't understand why we didn't want him on the team." I have a lot of other stories from Void's stint in our department. I'm guessing the day that Void left that department was a wonderful day for OP and their colleagues because they knew that their workload was going to go down and things would get a lot easier. I think what they should have done though was sent a condolences card to the new department that Void was working for, one that just says sorry and isn't signed by anybody. A laptop dies without warning, and the user swears they have no idea why. But the mess on the desk, it tells a different story. This story comes to us from Critch the Geek. Well, it's a mystery. I was sole tech support for a small but profitable company, only about 75 users. Mostly good people trying hard, but a few special ones. We had a logistics manager that may have been good at logistics, but computer skills were definitely lacking. Unrelated case in point, he had over 50 gigabytes of email in his inbox, No archives, no folders, just one big pile. And he didn't see any problems with that. Anyway, one morning about 9 a.m. or so, he calls and says his laptop screen just went black. I asked him to make sure he had a power adapter plugged in. Duh, of course. I could not remote into the unit. He was at my site, just different building, so I said I'd be right over. So I dropped what I was doing and trekked to his office. And there he was, paper towels in hand, wiping coffee off his desk. I picked up his laptop, tilted it, and drained probably a quarter cup of coffee out onto his recently dried desk, of course. Looking him dead in the eye, I asked, "You didn't think spilling a full cup of coffee on your laptop had anything to do with the screen just went black?" Okay, I've been off on the puns for a very long time, but I can't resist on this one. Could we say that the problem in this case was that Java crashed the computer? There's so many stories in this subreddit of simple fixes to problems, like in this case with the coffee, but in other cases like a stapler on a keyboard that somebody travels 3 hours to remove. That kind of thing happens all the time. It does make you want to hard reset the user themselves sometimes, and not the equipment. It was just a typo, a 2-minute fix, but for one sweet woman, it meant the world. And what she said to him, it's the kind of moment that stays with you. This story comes to us from Honey Fix It. No charge? Nonsense. For context, I am not formal tech support. I have a full-time job and I do a little support and teaching to older adults and seniors who either need support for a problem, help understanding a new device that was given to them, often a tablet or a smart TV, help using their device for a new task, or sometimes all of the above. I operate by word of mouth mostly. It's not so much a job as a fun hobby that gets me a little spending money every now and then. On with the story. I got a frantic call late one afternoon from my favorite customer. She lived in a semi-independent care facility down the road. This is where most of my customers come from. I'm going to call her Kathy. She was having problems emailing in her meal choices for the week, including that night, and was up against a deadline. She said that every time she sends the email, it comes back undeliverable. I told her I'd be right there. I grabbed my keys and left. When I got there, Kathy told me again what was going on. I looked at her email, and as I suspected, it was a typo that kept popping up as the autofill for Gmail. I asked her about the actual address, and she showed me on the menu. I typed the full address and sent the email. It didn't bounce back, but just to be sure, I started another message just to make sure it would come up in the autofill. She asked me how much, and I told her no charge. It hadn't even taken me 5 minutes. She kept arguing with me, and I told her, "Kathy, it took so little time that it's not worth the $30 an hour that I charge." For reference, I used to charge only $10 to $15 until I met her. She convinced me to increase the price, saying I was worth more than what I was charging. We have had this argument many times when it comes to payment because she would always pay me more than I charge. After a while, I just stopped arguing. Finally, after about a minute of back and forth, asked how long it took me to get there. I told her about 5 minutes. She said that's 10 minutes round trip. Then she starts to get the money out of a drawer and grinning, she hands me a 10 and a 20 and says, "10s are afraid to go out at night, so they take a 20 along for protection." I laughed at her and just said, "Okay, thank you." She passed away a few months ago, and her memorial service is this weekend. She still remains my best and favorite customer. I got to know her and her oldest daughter well. It got to the point where I just called her mom. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Emax4. It says, "Wow, what a great story. And to get so close that you called her mom too? Rest in peace, awesome user." OP responded and said, "Yes, she was my only steady customer. I used to tease her and say I should be paying her to be my VP of advertising because she would tell anyone and everyone she saw about me. The best part was that I met her through a sales and service shop I used to work for. Then, when I quit, because the owner had an ego so big, he couldn't have a door on his office, he used to make this stupid joke about how he always had an open door policy because he didn't have a door. I poached her away from them and told her she was better off with me. Many years ago, my wife and I were deciding what we wanted to do with our lives, and one of the things we were thinking of doing was getting into PSW work. But when I realized that I get attached to people way too easily, and that people in PSW work are gonna die, I decided that wasn't for me because I think it would be too heart-wrenching every time that one of my clients passed. OP, you obviously made a big difference in her life, and it's wonderful that you could do that for her. Well, I think we'll end this one here. It's a feel-good but sad ending at the same time. If you're listening on the podcast, make sure to hit that follow button. And if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.